Hello there, fellow fans. This is a fan with too much time, and today I'm going to go ahead and just roll right into the Q&As. So just a quick reminder for anyone who wants to ask a question and have it answered in an aftertalk, or at least a chance to have it answered, go ahead and put Q&A at the top of your question, and then leave it in the most recent video, and that's how I go through them. All right, so this time I'm going to do something a little different. Instead of starting from the first comments and going up to the last comments, I'm going to start in the reverse, just so that we can maybe swish it around a little bit and give some people a chance to ask questions who weren't there at the very first video.
Yeah, who was always frequently asking questions? I forgot right now. Spooks, yes. Look, Spooks, yes. Good on you for always asking, questions and being diligent in keeping up with the question and answer sessions. But I don't want to be, bombarded with these ships that you have, Ahsoka and C-82. It's enough now. It's enough. Spooks, sit down. Let's hear other people. Let's hear other people's questions.
So let's go ahead and do that. Let's take a look. Q&As. There we go. All right, Alex Rice. Let's see what your questions are. How many salamanders and noble blood angel successors are there, and will either and or both be good Imperials? Be the good Imperials? Okay, so I can't disclose with a whole lot of certainty how many salamanders versus blood angels there are. I will say this with a lot of certainty. There are a lot fewer salamanders. There are no salamander successor chapters here. They're just like actual... There's like an actual like 5-man... I want to say, what would that be? Like a fire team of salamanders that have arrived here to help in the Zectech sector. Because they were already in the area, and because salamanders are salamanders, they can't not, defend people from things like Tyranids and whatnot. So they brought their flamers and they were ready for action. There are going to be more blood angels than that, I can confirm. And
Are blood angels good? I know that, the salamanders protect civilians, but I've never heard of blood angels protecting civilians. I don't know anything about that, but okay.
And there will be blood angel successors, which is part of the reason why there are more quote-unquote blood angels. And, it's a tragedy that the salamanders can't have successors. I think that might be different now with the Primaris. Somebody please go ahead and confirm or deny that for me, because it's about fucking time we get some salamander successors. Stop excluding them. They're awesome. Freaking Titanic-ass space marines. The Black Dragons are the unofficial successors in my opinion. But in any case, back to the questions. 2. What would Cheeky or Will learning about chaos and the true nature of the Force/warp from the Imperium do to the Jedi and their teachings? So, funny enough, it won't do very much. And part of the reason is because what they will be shocked with is that things can get that bad. But they would like sit down in a council and be like, okay, well, we never really simulated or estimated how bad it would get if like the entire galaxy went to the dark side and it just went totally out of control and we failed categorically in our mission, like not just in defeating the Sith but in like serving the will of the Force in its entirety. That's what this would look like, but it doesn't change very much about what we think or know about the Force and the way it works. They would essentially say this just reaffirms why we have to be Jedi and why the Jedi need to do what the Jedi do, because otherwise we might end up facing this. And they're not entirely wrong, at least like from a certain logical perspective.
Yeah, and I can also just see, the Jedi won't really panic. They won't be scared, or they won't be too overly worried over something like this. They will meditate on it. It's what they're good at. They will meditate on it. They will have conferences or, converse amongst each other and also reaffirm, just like, what AFanWithTooMuchTime just said. They'll reaffirm saying, like, this is why we need to be here as Jedi, keeping the balance, keeping the peace, against something so horrible like, you know, what the Imperium of Man have been experiencing in their galaxy. So yeah, I think their purpose as a galactic institution will be further solidified in them, you know, to say that the galaxy needs Jedi to protect this galaxy from a potential nightmare. Yeah.
What is actually going to be more interesting is what happens to the Psychers from the 40K universe as they learn about the actual true nature of the Force and the Warp, because they have lived in the Warp their entire existence, their entire history as a nation, their entire history as a species has been with the Warp, and it's only gotten warpier and warpier as time goes on. But here in the Star Wars galaxy, you have the Sea of Souls, not 100% pure, but certainly a billion, trillion, uncountable amounts more pure than you have around the Milky Way galaxy.
And C82 is starting to see that, you know, like things here are different. And how will this affect change in the Imperium of Man? I'm not entirely sure, you know, and I'm also not sure how, you know, the leadership structure of the Imperium of Man is going to accept this new reality that, you know, the warp here is not as dangerous as it is in their home galaxy. So we're not entirely sure how they're going to respond to something like this. But I guess we'll figure that out, you know, in later episodes.
So all that to say that when they begin to realize that the warp in and of itself isn't warpy and that it needs to get warped and that it isn't warped here, there will be a various amount of very interesting reactions to the discovery or even introduction of that idea into the discussion. Of course, there will be plenty of denial and whatnot, but you'll see. It'll be fun. So let's see here. 3. Is the God Emperor of Mankind the Chosen One? Is he the Chosen One? Is he...
As in Anakin? No. No.
Anakin Skywalker? No, he is not. Nor is Anakin Skywalker the Emperor, nor will I contrive for Anakin Skywalker to become the Emperor. Perhaps they are both chosen ones of two different galaxies, but certainly they're not the same person. Let's see here.
I mean, imagine. No. Anakin is too volatile. Like the Emperor is so stoic and almost virtually emotionless, and then here you have Anakin Skywalker, who his power is manifested through his emotions, like so much so compared to other Jedi. It just doesn't work that way. You know, he's not the chosen one in terms of, you know, him being the Emperor of the Star Wars galaxy. I just don't see it. I'm sorry, guys.
Will other Imperials realize that what C82 realized? Will other Imperial forces begin to think that the Jedi serve the motive force as opposed to just the warp? Maybe, but most won't be able to care to parse the difference, because a lot of Imperial factions don't actually care a whole lot or even know a whole lot about the motive force and the lore around the motive force. Fulgurite priests and honestly just Electro priests in general are heinously fanatic, and they're not just heinously fanatical about the Trinity in general, though they are that too, but in particular they are incredibly fanatical about the motive force, and they seek to see it in everything they do and everything that they experience.
And this is why I'm asking, you know, like how is the Imperium of Man forces, you know, from Zektek and the Crimson Razors, how are they going to respond to whatever C82 says, you know, saying that he has had a revelation on the reality of this galaxy? How are they going to respond to that? Are they going to kill him? Are they going to incarcerate him? You know?
Which is why you have C82 being prone to doing things like that. So there may be other Electro priests that definitely see what he sees, and there may be some that contest what he sees with something else and whatnot. And there may even be other what do you call them? I'm sorry, tech priests that are not electro priests specifically that may also see this and maybe even consider it as relevant. But most of the Imperium won't care. They won't even understand the significance of that difference. So that's the answer to that, more or less. I know you said no romance between Ahsoka and C-80. No romance. Come on now. How is that? How would that even work? Don't answer that. And C-82. But what about bromance? Bromance. Well, yeah, there could be a sort of bromance between them, or, you know, just a... I mean, there's never going to be a casual or normal friendship between the two of them, because, I mean... Well, first of all, they're at war and on two different sides. That by itself makes any kind of friendship kind of a very weird, specific thing, I think.
And remember what C-82 said, next time we meet, you better not be fighting against me, because if you are, you're gonna die. So there's no chance of a bromance here either.
But they could have a sort of friendliness between the two of them as being people who mutually spared each other's lives and who both mutually understand that the other doesn't want the war to continue, that they are ultimately seeking peace. So in that way, yes, and that may grow closer, and may be more emphasized or not emphasized depending on how much contact they have during and throughout the war. But yes, you will have the Electro Priest vouch for Ahsoka, and you will have the Ahsoka vouch for C-82 for sure. So I think that's all the questions there for Alex Rice. Let's go ahead and move on to the next ones. John Mandrage. Is that right? Mandrage? Q&A. What would a Imperial Saint look like for a Star Wars Force sensitive? Are there any rogue traders in the Star Wars galaxy now? Okay, so... Okay, so when you say an Imperial Saint, you have to be a little bit more specific because there are lots of Imperial Saints that do different things, and some of them are even called, like, not just Imperial Saints, but, like, Living Saints. And the Living Saints, some of them aren't even what you would consider to be a traditional Living Saint, and that they don't actually seem to have any powers. They just survived an incredibly dicey situation and have been given a lot of clout and authority and titles by the Administratum, and not the Administratum, my bad, by the Ecclesiarchy. So those things exist, and I mean, to them, they'd just be religious figures that are outfitted with a hell of a lot of crazy-ass weapons and zeal and whatnot. But as for a living saint, insofar as, like, Saint Celestine, well...
Is Saint Celestine living, though? Is she really living? I think maybe she's like a warp construct made by the Emperor. I don't know. Maybe she was alive once before, but I think now she's just some sort of warp being. But yeah.
Now it greatly depends on who you ask, because no one's going to see that the same way unless it's explained to them all the same way, and even then there's going to be a hardcore variance. The normal person in the galaxy may very well see it as a legitimate miracle. She is what she says. She is what she says she is, and she's doing what she says she's doing. She is Saint Celestine. She is returned from death by the power of the Emperor because she represents God, a higher power than we know of currently. And they could have, like, there's people in the galaxy that can definitely accept that. The Jedi would think that it's... I mean, the Jedi and the Sith would both think that it's a type of technique, a Force technique. The Jedi would be pretty confounded by it, like, in many, many ways, because as far as they understand it, no, actually, Saint Celestine is selfless. Jeez, she might actually qualify for Force ghosting. Oh my god. The Jedi might see her as a kind of Force ghost, just a very, very... Can I even say, like, more incarnate? Because Force ghosts can do whatever they want, really. They just choose not to. They let the living deal with their own stuff and just kind of guide when they're really needed. They'd see her as a Force ghost that for some reason isn't as ghosty looking. Like, she looks more solid. But certainly her coming back to life over and over again and not being able to stay dead implies that she is a kind of Force ghost. They probably wouldn't think it's the same kind that Qui-Gon Jinn or like their Jedi legends speak of, because she just doesn't show the same symptoms in the same ways, but they would certainly think that she's a kind. The Sith would covet whatever it is she has, and they probably wouldn't be very willing to accept that it's because she's selfless or because the Emperor is actually God. They would be like, okay, this bitch is psyker, and she figured out some way of living forever, and I've got to figure that out. And they would just be all over that, trying to figure it out. God help her if they ever got their hands on her, because they'd just be killing her over and over again, trying to figure out how the hell it is she's coming back to life. Of course, God help them, because the biggest mistake you can try to do as a dark side anything is get in the same room as Saint Celestine.
Like, have you seen that lady shine? There's just no way they'll be able to come anywhere close to her. They would burn to ash.
And not be a billion trillion times prepared to take on a billion trillion times more than you think you're gonna have to. But yeah, that's about that more or less answers that question. So let's see here. What's the next one? Are there any rogue traders in the Star Wars galaxy now? Yes, there are. Absolutely, there are rogue traders. They are definitely there. They're actually already moving around and exploring without the express permission of Orion or anybody else in the fleet. As rogue traders who are now officially outside of a battlefield condition, they can, unless they're immediately countermanded by like someone like the Inquisition, just go and do almost anything that they want, and they are certainly going and doing that. Rogue traders right now are having a nice, awesome-ass field day with just going around and looking at stuff and scouting and even making...
I don't know anything about these rogue traders. I've never heard of such a group.
Contact. It's going to be fun to see where they end up, but yeah, there are definitely rogue traders in here. They definitely came with the rest of the fleet, and they're definitely going about. So that was John Mandrage. Let's go ahead and move down to the next Q&A. See here, Q&A. Will the Republic start recruiting citizens? You better believe it. I'm not going to reveal quite what format that will take, but yeah, it's not going to just be the clones fighting against the Imperium, just because there just isn't... I mean, I already said I'm going to bolster the number of clones, and I am going to do that. And it's not that the Imperial Guard are categorically better than the clones, but they are much better equipped and much better supported, and it's hard to deny that. I mean, heck, man, I think that I've even seen whole videos on how shit terrible the tank support tactics for the clones were. The clones are going to get straightened out, and their tactics will adapt because the clones are intelligent, professional soldiers who are very much born of the Mandalorian way of fighting. But unfortunately, because they're starting off with all these janky Kaminoan tactics, and they're not being played with by the droid army anymore, they're going to suffer some hard casualties correcting those mistakes, and there will be a heavy, heavy need to field civilians on the field. And
that is going to be interesting, though, you know, having the population of the galaxy participating in this war. Not just humanoid creatures, but other alien species, you know, from across the galaxy also contributing their soldiers into the Galactic Republic's defense. So yeah, it's going to be very interesting, very diverse, very colorful, you know, of all different shapes and sizes of soldiers coming in. And yeah, even ships probably, you know, a lot of ships that don't belong to the Galactic Republic might also start joining in. Probably the fleets that were meant to be part of the Rebel Alliance, you know, a few years down the line, are now going to be joining the the Galactic Republic, defending the Republic from the Imperium of Man. So something like that might also happen, where you might see ships that belonged to the Alliance now joining here in the Galactic Republic's Grand Fleet. So yeah.
They will be able to, trust me. The Imperium is a scary enough threat that people will be like, yeah, well, I definitely don't want that showing up on my planet, and it's not hard to imagine why. So, let's keep going. And that was Joseph Caillou. Caillou. Maybe that's Caillou. If it is, it's hilarious. Whatever. Maybe it's not hilarious. Maybe it's just a person's name. I have a lot of memes attached to that name. In any case, let's go on to the next one. Q&A. How would Tarkin react to Imperial culture? Would he agree with a lot of what they preach, or would he oppose it? Oh my god. Like, Tarkin, straight up, like, Tarkin would love the Imperium, and he would love everything about it. The only problem is that Tarkin is, and here's the thing, you have to understand this. Tarkin would never betray the Republic, and Tarkin would never betray the Empire. Tarkin, like, when the Republic became the Empire, to Tarkin, not very much changed. And as far as he was concerned, that was just like a rebranding thing, but he serves the Galactic Foundation that the Galactic Republic has been holding together for 26,000 years. That is what Tarkin serves, the concept of this galactic local order.
So he will admire the enemy, but he won't join the enemy. You know, he might try to emulate how the enemy operates and try to apply it to his own soldiers and, you know, people who are in his command structure. So yeah, that's what might happen.
And Tarkin isn't really... I mean, he definitely appreciates, in a way that is enormous, the fact that Palpatine lets him have the run of the show and do everything. But that's not the reason he serves Palpatine. Palpatine rewards him and gives him that, but in a large part, Palpatine gives him that much power because he knows that Tarkin doesn't really covet it. Tarkin has many flaws, and he's an evil man in many ways, but one thing that Tarkin is he's loyal to his superiors. That's a very interesting thing that I've noticed about Tarkin through many renditions. And so Tarkin would think that the Imperium is a superior form of government. That it's superior, not maybe in a form of government, but a superior... that it is superior in most ways to the Republic. But his answer to that would not be to defect to the Imperium. It would be to make the Republic more like the Imperium, which you honestly see him do in the actual canon. It's definitely in line with his way of thinking. And that is how he would approach that. Tarkin would never join the Yuuzhan Vong, even if he were offered a place. Tarkin would never join anything that isn't that Galactic Foundation pillar that he joined up and served from the start. And for him, when the Republic died and became the Empire, it wasn't a death of the Republic. It was just a direct continuation, nothing more than a rebranding. So that's more or less what he would think about that kind of thing. At least from my point of view, of course. Let's see here. I'm sorry, who was that? Declan Mugford. That was your Q&A. So next up we have Owen Wagner. Owen. 1. We have seen... Hold on one second. Okay, there we go. We have seen Jedi reading minds and seeing daemons, but we've seen Jedi reading minds and seeing daemons, but will we see any other factions? Necrons, Orcs, Dark Eldar, or even Kroot have many practices that would be horrible for the Jedi. Blade Ones and Destroyers killing everything, Kroot eating the dead, Orcs being Orcs, and especially the Dark Eldar being the Dark Eldar. Honestly, the Jedi would be...
Dark Eldar? I don't know. I mean, don't they need Komora to also be there for them to survive and to thrive? I mean, well, yeah. I just don't see the Dark Eldar coming here into this situation. But hey, maybe AFanWithTooMuchTime can make it possible somehow. Yeah.
Really cool with the Kroot and really understanding of them. I mean, yeah, the Kroot are cannibals, but they're far from the only cannibals in the Star Wars galaxy, and the Jedi do get along with the other cannibalistic races as long as they don't cross certain lines and it's like kept at a cultural thing. The Kroot typically don't eat people alive, and even when they do, it's like on the battlefield, so I think the Jedi would give them a pass on that. Everything else, however, is definitely a thing that they would have some pretty hardcore reactions to. So you're asking if we'll be seeing the Jedi react to any of the other things? Well, I mean, I can't promise that all these factions will make it in large part because if I fill the Star Wars universe with all the 40K factions, they'll just tear everything apart, and then it'll become 40K in the Star Wars universe, but without Star Wars being super involved. So I don't intend to do that. But when they do occur, you will see the Jedi react to it. And definitely, everything that occurs from the 40K universe and this universe, you will get a Jedi reaction in many ways to it. So let's see here. If not, can we see them react to the behavior of Chaos Marines and cults, such as Death Guard, Emperor's Children, and Night Lords? Like I said, everything that you see pop up, like they will react to it. So that's what you will see reactions to. Let's see here. Let's go to the next Q&A. Richard Witt. Witty one. So let's see. Q&A. Will the Raven Guard, Blood Angels, and Space Wolves make an appearance? Yes. Well, at least they are there. I don't know to what degree I plan to let them make an appearance, but successors or elements of those chapters do exist inside of the Zectec fleet at the moment. So it is totally possible, and should I come up with an inspiring idea that would involve them, it will be done. Alrighty, let's go to the next one. Gundamvid. Gundamvid. Okay, there we go. Gundamvid. I do have a Q&A. Okay, what is your Q&A? Has the prophecy, the one who brings balance to the Force, been altered in any way with the coming of the Imperium? I'm...
Interesting question. Very interesting question. I think that prophecy's been put on hold. That prophecy's been put on hold.
Just going to leave that question a little blank, and you guys can use powerful critical thinking and observation skills to determine whether or not that is the case. So, moving on. Let's see. Commentator Q&A. 1. You are planning to have the Imperials being collectively traumatized play a role. But what aspects of the Star Wars galaxy, like the hypocrisy of the Jedi and the Republic, will play a big role regarding the Imperial man's knowledge of the Star Wars galaxy? Will both sides grow and learn from each other? Yes and yes. There will be a Imperial view on the Republic, but you should know that it's very dismissive. The Imperium crushes other governments and then forgets about them and doesn't like to consider them in a very high regard or in a very intense way, other than like how much it takes to destroy them. They don't really care whether or not the Republic is a legitimate government or whether or not they're hypocrites, but I can tell you this, especially as they learn more and more about the Republic, there will be moments of dialogue between forces of the Imperium and forces of the Republic where they're basically yelling at each other in the midst of combat. And you better believe that when those things occur, the Imperials will not shy away from saying, you guys fucking call yourself a Republic, but you're just an empire. You just call your Emperor Supreme Chancellor, and you have fucking slave soldiers. Eat my dick. You're not better. So, yeah, like, you'll get similar interactions to things like that when they do occur.
I'm just reminding myself of the battle of the sister of battle, Rojulia. You know, when she was talking with Shock T, and Shock T was, you know, trying to take the diplomatic route, and Rojulia was having none of it. She was having none of it. She was resolute in where she stands with her opinion on the Galactic Republic and the Xeno races within the galaxy. She was resolute. So yeah.
But again, the Imperium won't spend a whole lot of time thinking too much about the Republic unless they begin to see themselves as like having to be defeated by them or pushed back by them or something. It'll have to be pretty drastic for them to think about that because of what the Imperium is like and what they do on a regular basis. Will both sides grow and learn from each other? Define grow and learn and each other. We'll see. We'll see. Watch. It'll be fun. So, have you given thought about inserting some smaller in-between vids, like improvised vids, where we can see one or a couple of people from the factions discuss things about the other faction? Like a Republic researcher making a log about the Imperium of Man's technology history, or some guardsmen talking about the Republic or CIS combatants. Perhaps. Not going to rule that out. I may do that. 3. How about having a rogue trader make contact with a Star Wars diplomat or something? Stick around and watch. This may very well occur in some way. 4. How will there be some good, friendly things happen? Either on an individual faction or interfactional level. I mean, yes, there will be, like you've seen already. Don't expect it to predominate. Star Wars is pretty well named, and Warhammer, although not as well named, because frankly it's definitely more war-y, is bringing the war here. And there's going to just be a lot of conflict. I mean, even no matter how you slice this and no matter what happens, there's going to be a ton of fighting and a ton of conflict. Even if good guys win in the end, even if the forces of unity win out in the end and there's some sort of conciliation, there's going to be so much fighting even because of that. So just, you know, prepare for that to be the predominance of the universe. Let's see here. Should Necrons come into play, how about having the Warp spit out a single Necron tomb world into the Star Wars galaxy? It's hard to have the Warp spit out anything Necron is the problem. Like, it really is. The Necron tomb... If a Necron tomb world doesn't want to be swallowed by the Warp, it's kind of hard for the Warp to swallow it. It's happened, but it's not easy, especially if the Necron tomb world happens to be awake when it happens. They tend to have technology to stop things like that. But let's...
Do the Necrons use the warp for travel as well? I didn't know about that. I thought maybe they just traverse the vastness of space using faster than light technology that's not, you know, warp drives. Yeah.
Let's keep reading. Like from a minor dynasty or a small outpost, something just powerful enough to warrant an uncomfortable cooperation between the factions out of necessity. You know, I don't want to shortchange any of the factions, is one of the issues. And I feel that if I did something like just pop in a tomb world, just one, it would get defeated. And it would be pretty sizably crushed. I mean, even the Star Wars universe can eventually get around one tomb world. They have Death Stars and stuff like that, and they can make them in a pretty short amount of time when they're pushed. So, I want to give each side a fair shot. The problem is the Necrons are so powerful that a fair shot to them would KO most things. I'm even of the opinion, honestly, that the Necrons in the current canon of Warhammer 40K should just, like when Emotech I think it was Emotech the Stormlord, when he like Spartan kicked the Marshal or High Marshal of the Black Templars, Helbrecht, like clean into a ravine. That's like what the Necrons should be doing at every encounter. They are a Worn Heaven level threat, and it's like, I guess they're just the Swarmer threat, the weak Swarmer threat from the Worn Heaven, but it's even at that point, it's just so powerful that it's hard for me to even buy a lot of the victories that we have against the Necrons as being anything more than the result of just despondency, because they should have the technology, the numbers, and the tactics to crush just about everyone in the universe. I mean, crap, they're all AI. I mean, the ones that can think anyway. So there you go. So that's part of the reason why I'm probably going to keep the Necrons separate or out. And if I do involve them, it'll be in a very unique way, because I don't want to cheat fans of the Necrons of like giving them their fair shot. So that's what I gotta say about that. Let's go ahead and move on to the next one. Adrian Almgard, Q&A. Are there any Sisters of Silence present with the Imperial forces? If so, would pariah abilities be completely
Yes, they are here. They are here with us.
I don't know. I think I answered that one in this video. So let's move on to the next one. Zinch, Chaos God. Oh, I see. The planner himself is here, scheming in my comments section. Well, let's see what your question is, Zinch, Mr. Asker Questions, who answers all questions asked of him with more questions. Let's see. Is the Imperium being portrayed as bad guys here? Will we see their view of the story or only the Republic from this point on, as I rather enjoyed stories like Lucky 1313. Huh. Let me think here. What episode is this? I do believe that this episode, Blue Blade in the Dark, I think that this one was mostly from the Imperial's perspective. Last episode 2, actually, I think the majority was from the Imperial's perspective, from C-82's perspective. And not only that, but he was definitely not what you would call a villainous Imperial, at least by the standards of the Imperium.
Interesting. I kind of saw it differently. Instead of it focusing on the Imperial side, I kind of felt like it was focusing on the Star Wars side, especially with episode 18, the Blue Blade in the Dark, I kind of felt like it was focusing on the Jedi and Obi-Wan Kenobi. Yes, Sarafan was spoken about the most, because all the Jedi are clamoring against him. But for some reason, it just kind of felt like it was a Star Wars side. Also with the C-82 and Ahsoka, it felt more like an Ahsoka, kind of storyline. Like she was leading it, and C-82 was following behind, for the story. And even with this one, it's Anakin Skywalker and the other characters who are also part of the Star Wars universe who are, following the main lead, and that is Anakin Skywalker. So that's how I felt with these past 3 episodes. But, AFanWithTooMuchTime is also saying that it's the other way around, where he was focusing mainly with the Imperium of Man, especially with episode 18. So yeah.
And then the episode before that, I do believe, was Rajulia fighting Shakti. And then the episode before that was the squad trying to survive inside of the maintenance compound, which I think, I don't think you can categorize them as bad guys as much as they're just soldiers caught in a war situation. So I think I'm already doing that, honestly. I think that even to this episode, I'm doing that. Now, if you're asking me, are they being portrayed as bad guys? Yeah, I'll say this. I don't really believe that when it comes to governments and politics that there really are good guys and bad guys. At least not in most cases. Things have to get pretty bad for there to be good guys, basically. The Republic isn't good guys. The Republic is like a month away from being the Empire, and as Darth Maul said in the in the season finale of the series finale of the Clone Wars, the Republic is already dead. It's already changed. It's already an empire. You just don't see it yet, but it's there. It's already done. So, the Republic isn't good guys either, so to say. It just has a lot of good guys on it. So in that way, the Imperium and the Republic are very similar in that way. Both heads of the factions are basically evil, or like the very governmental forces that are pulling them into power are at least amoral. But both factions have a lot of good people in them and a lot of heroes fighting for mostly just their survival or for what they think is right with all the incomplete information and incomplete power that they have to enforce it with. That being said, the Imperium is much darker, much more genocidal, much more extreme than the Republic is. Even the Empire, once it becomes the Galactic Empire, which don't get me wrong, the Galactic Empire performs xenocides and planet destructions and does its own fair share of totally fucked up things, but it covers them up. It just isn't as extreme as the Imperium of Man. So if you're trying to cut this down to things that are more black and white, yes, the Imperium of Man, until it is reformed from being outside of its universe and like trying to be different, until that is the case, then it's almost certainly, if not absolutely, the bad guy faction here. It has no choice but to be. It doesn't know how else to be. It's almost like if you take a shark, a great white shark, you alter it genetically so it can survive in fresh water and you dump it into a lake. Is it the shark's fault that it's eating all the fish? It's all it knows how to do. So it's going to do that until it knows how to do something different, until it even knows that it's possible to do something different. So, yes, the Imperium is in many ways the bad guy here. I mean, not that Palpatine is the good guy. But I don't encourage you to look at the story quite like that. Let me see here.
I think we must also just remember that, you know, the Imperium of Man, yes, you would consider them to be bad and evil, like in the Star Wars galaxy, yes, but, you know, from where they come from, this is just standard survival tactics, what they're doing. As horrible and as nightmarish it may be, it's the only way they're able to survive in such a hellish galaxy where there is only war, where there is no time for peace, where there is no respite. You know, it's just war, unending, and never seizing the opportunity for any type of goodness or changing themselves into goodness. It's always war, and that's how they are. That's how they are applying it to the Star Wars galaxy as well. So, yeah, you know, you would consider them to be the bad guys in the Star Wars galaxy. We'll see if that changes over time, but...
So now we go on to Zarya Smith, Q&A, respondent parts. So is Rabute Guilliman going to show up? No, he is not. I have no plans at moment for the Primarchs to make appearances. The Primarchs are too powerful.
Yeah, he's discussed about this before, you know, that if any of the Primarchs were here, or especially Rabute Guilliman was here, it would just be a Warhammer 40K show and not a Star Wars versus Warhammer, you know, and the Imperium of Man would just dominate this entire galaxy instead of it being much of a struggle for the Star Wars side as well as the Warhammer side, the Imperium of Man side. And that's what would make the story nice. Not having a supreme being like a Primarch here, it would just... the power play between the two factions would just be so skewed in favor of the Imperium of Man. So yeah.
You know, I will remind you that Yvraine and the entirety of the Ynnari, with a ton of Dark Eldar and Harlequins and Craftworlders and Exodites and, you know, all the Eldar, got together on one planet and were almost wiped out by the shadow of a demonic threat, by the shadow of a major daemon. Then we flip over to the Primarchs on human sides, and you have, like, Sanguinius fighting all of Chaos Undivided just by himself, holding it all off, and then breaking Bellacor's freaking body over his freaking knee. And the problem is that even inside of the 40K universe, the only things that could stand up to the Necrons, if anything could, is just raw-ass the Primarchs. So if I drop a Primarch into this universe, they are both individually so powerful, it's difficult to even contrive a way by which a Primarch can die in battle. I mean, read First Heretic, one of the very first Horus Heresy books. And it tells you right there that the smell and taste of Primarch blood is just weird for it to be in the air, because it's not natural for Primarchs to bleed in battle, because they don't take injuries. They're that good and that lethal, and so much more than warriors. So no, I can't have Rabute Guilliman show up. He'll fix everything too quickly. He will make the Imperium reasonable. He will reform the Republic and out Sidious in a day. It's not a thing that I can involve without instantly giving him most of the universe because of how level-headed, intelligent, and raw-ass powerful he is. So let's go on to the next one. Also, can you include other Imperial Guard regiments? I think they're underrated. I think they're underrated, like the Penal Legions, Catachan Jungle Fighters, Praetorian Guards, and others. Okay, so yes, I will include other regiments, especially the Catachan Jungle Fighters and maybe a few Penal Legions. I don't know a whole lot about the Praetorian Guard, nor do I know a lot about Penal Legions outside of one or two of my own, like, researched favorites. So I can only promise to go into the things that I know or that I think I know. That being said, I do intend to do that. Let's see here. I think the Republic is demoralized at this point, and are you going to show the Senate perspective and realize that they started it by destroying one of their ships first. Also, can't wait to see the war from a civilian point of view. So there's...
I think he's already started that process as well. Yeah.
already been a bit of this Senate perspective, and I've actually had a side story in the community section a little ways back now, where Dr. Sheena is investigating the whole event involving the ship hyperspace ramming the Imperial ship and kicking off this conflict. So that's not being ignored by everyone, but a lot of the Senate is doing what it normally does and shirking its responsibility and shoving it off, and there's no one really forcing them to face it. Certainly Palpatine is not drawing attention to that. So let's see here. Also, can't wait to see the war from the civilian point of view. It's going to be a little hard for me to do that one just without the civilian dying in the story almost immediately, but we'll see. P.S. I don't agree with the Republic winning some of the battles, but I'm still watching to see where this goes. I have a lot more questions, but I can't think of them all right now. Alrighty, well, you go ahead and ask them when you can think of them.
Okay. Whoever this person is, okay, alright. Yeah, you know. Guys, if you guys don't like the story, maybe it's time you start making your own, you know? Yeah, I don't know.
You know, I respect your opinion when it comes to whatever it is, but it's hard for me to speak to it without knowing what your specific issues with the Republic are. So, yeah, that's all I can say about that. Alrighty, so then, let's see. Let's keep scrolling and scrolling. And let's do one or two more, and then I'll go ahead and sign off. Alrighty. Russian name, man. I don't know how to read that. The last three letters look like letters. I understand that it says Hob or Ahab. More than three letters. It's like four or oh, there you go. Your question. Maybe you'll recognize it off of the question. Q&A. Is Palpatine going to lift the restrictions on the CIAS? Like, I mean, will he let them build better robots, like stopping them from building B1s and letting them build more B2s, super battle droids, or just allowing them to build... Okay, yes, in that he is going to stop actively limiting the CIS, because mostly, honestly, it's not going to be a conscious decision. Mostly Palpatine is going to be too busy with everything else to actively limit the CIS and to feed the Republic intel and get the Jedi out there to destroy factories making the ultra super battle droids like he does every Tuesday to stop the CIS from winning the war. So yeah, he'll stop actively restricting them. Will he push for like better stuff to be put forward? Frankly, probably not. Not him himself. He's gonna be too busy trying to manage the Republic because he's got a giant mess in his lap and he can only handle so much of it.
Yeah, probably it will be Count Dooku who's going to be, you know, pushing this notion of creating better battle droids.
Dooku, Grievous, you'll see what their reaction to this is and how they decide to manage it. Alright, Ricky 4990. Ricky 4990. Let's go ahead and see your question. Will we get to the death camps soon, if at all? Will we get to them? Well, I'm not sure what you mean. We have depicted them already, but nobody is currently fighting to get there. You know, you have to wait and see if we get there in whatever way. But I will say that.
Oh, is the death camps those facilities where they keep the dissidents of Axiom, right? And Ahsoka was, you know, protesting to the Jedi that, you know, this should be our first point of interest. This should be our first mission, to liberate the people in these death camps, and then we can focus on the rest of the planet. Is that what AFanWithTooMuchTime is talking about right now? Yeah, I think so. Okay.
Nothing in the story so far should have indicated to you that anyone is heading in that direction. That's actually one of the big problems that Ahsoka had with this whole plan. She wanted to go and use at least some of their forces to liberate the people that are suffering in the death camps. And Mace Windu categorically refused it, and then, you know, you know, cool story citizened her and basically pushed her out of the conversation. So at the current moment, doesn't look like it. Let's see here. Some guy camping. Q&A. Will there be any Imperial defectors to the Republic like guardsmen do with the Tau? You will see. You will see. Alright, let's see. Sevlar. Q&A. I know this is a little late. Are we going to see Quake Cannons on Baneblades, and are there going to be other Space Marine chapters aside from the Sly Watch and the Crimson Razors? Yes, there will be others. Not too many others. I like my homebrews, and it lets me do what I want with them without having to do tons of research every time I move. So I do like them. But you will, as I've mentioned before, see others. And will you see Quake Cannons on Beyblade? So if I'm not mistaken, and I could be mistaken, so do tell me if I am mistaken, but a Quake Cannon is a cannon that a Baneblade shoots into the ground, and it like blasts into the ground and burrows and then explodes and causes an earthquake. Is that what you mean? I mean, first of all, just in general, you will see Imperial weapons, and unless there's a very good reason for them not to be present, then there probably are present. And there's like a lot of Baneblades here, even if in general, in proportion, there aren't many of them. In general, like, there's a lot. If you were to line them all up in a row, you'd think that's a lot of Baneblades, because it's a huge-ass fleet and a huge-ass invasionary force. You know, a bunch of Forge Worlds got evacuated. So there will be Quake Cannons in general, but most likely, if the Quake Cannon is what I just mentioned, then probably yes, there will be. Will I depict them? If I find a place to. I can't depict every single Imperial weapon, or rather I can, but I don't intend to just for its own sake. Only what is, you know, a bigger part of the narrative. But are they present? Yeah, probably. Let's see. John Smith. Q&A. Q&A. Oh, I see. Going for the double down, huh? Will you be using the Anathema Psychana, the Sisters of Silence, in any of the stories? I'm not sure. Maybe. Let's see. Dave E. Q&A. If Chaos shows up, what kind of chapters will show up? Also, what is your opinion on the Word Bearers and successive chapters? I think Lorgar kind of got fucked over. I think that a lot of people got fucked over. I think that Lorgar did get fucked over, but that Lorgar is also a very huge sucker. He was really... I'll say this. I expect a lot from the Primarchs, so I'm disappointed with quite a few of them, because they're supposed to be very superhuman, and even in their mentality.
Yeah, I'm more disappointed with their supposed father. You know, he calls himself their father, but... no, he's no father. Yeah, I'm more disappointed with that man than I am with the Primarchs. You know, the Primarchs, yes, they were broken. You know, sent out to their different locations. Many of them, they did not make it. Mentally, they did not make it. You know, when you think about Conrad Kurz, when you think about Angron, when you think about Logar, as AFanWithTooMuchTime is just speaking right now, you know, they just did not come out right. Perturabo as well, to some extent, also did not come out all right. You know, and the Emperor simply did not do enough to heal his sons, to connect with his sons, to try and understand his sons and correct them wherever there's a mistake. He just didn't do it because there was not enough time, apparently. You know, we've been told that there was a certain time limit where the Emperor had a window of opportunity to change the future of humanity for all eternity. But yeah.
Lorgar had this obsession with needing to worship something. He was unwilling to let go of the idea that he needed to worship a thing. And while I understand the quest to find God and to see if there really is something beyond, if the thing that you're worshiping isn't your creator, it doesn't actually control the galaxy, and it's actually just born out of everyone's negative thoughts, and you comprehend that and understand it and have incorporated it into the truth, you should know better than to worship it. Like, Lorgar is not someone we would hold at the bottom, like, end of the bell curve for the population. He's supposed to be at the top.
Yeah, the thing is that he was also he probably felt abandoned by the Emperor after what happened in what was that planet called again? I forgot. The planet that he converted the population into worshipping the Emperor as a god. And, the Emperor came there with the Ultramarines, and they, blew up the entire city or the entire civilization, and had the word bearers and their Primarch watch as all of this happened. And after that, the Emperor berated him, and he probably felt abandoned. He felt insulted. He felt like he was not loved by the Emperor, and he found all of that comforting solace and trust in from the Chaos Gods. And maybe that's why he changed so easily like that. Yeah.
And frankly, he's really not acting like it. He was extremely emotional. I mean, don't get me wrong. Again, this is not to justify the crazy bullshit the Emperor did with him, which is he goes and blows up the Eternal City or the Perfect City or whatever it was that Lorgar built that he was so proud of. That being said, Lorgar should really get the message by that point, and he shouldn't sulk and betray the entire Imperium because of it. The Emperor should have handled it better, no doubt, but Lorgar at no point should start worshipping demons. It just doesn't make any sense. He should not do that. What is my opinion of the Word Bearers? They're interesting, but frankly, I don't like them very much as a faction of Chaos. I'm much more partial to the Thousand Sons, because, and this is a perfect dichotomy to explain why. The Thousand Sons don't typically worship the ruinous powers. They don't even typically worship Tzeentch in such a way as worship would be concerned. They revere Tzeentch as a source of incredible power and knowledge, but the Tiskans take a much more scientific approach to worshipping and using chaos, and that's why they become sorcerers. And typically speaking, they dominate demons, not the other way around. The Word Bearers are the other way around. They worship demons. I mean, they don't worship all demons, but they do tend to revere them all. And they worship some of them, if not a ton of them, and they want to be used as pawns of chaos. The issue with that is that it either demonstrates that they have very weak wills, in my opinion, or that they don't actually understand what chaos is. Because chaos doesn't have a plan. Even Tzeentch, the planner, the great architect of fate, his plan is just a plan that goes on forever without an actual end point or termination goal. So, if you're a word bearer and you're trying to give yourself over to chaos and then just enforce the will of chaos into the universe, you have to begin with the understanding that the universe is mindless, chaos is mindless. There is no will. That you're not enforcing will. You're enforcing literal chaos, and that there's no point. There's no point to doing that. There's as much merit in enforcing the chaos for the sake of chaos as there is in fighting against it and creating more chaos in the battle, which is
I think also the issue is that they're seeking purpose, because they felt as if they lost that purpose when the Emperor berated them and told them that what you're doing on this planet, what you're doing with your perfect city is wrong. They also felt betrayed and bittered by that situation, and they wanted to find someone else that would cherish them, that would use them as instruments of their ambition. And the Chaos Gods filled in that hole, filled in that gap, and yeah.
Exactly the reason why Khorne is so ungodly powerful in the modern age. And And that's where I always get stuck with it. And yeah, sure, you can do it for the rewards, you know, like, oh, I will be richly rewarded by the dark powers. And like, yeah, okay, for a small-minded person, this is enough. But if you really want to reap the rewards of chaos, then you need to go the Tiscan sorcerer way. Or join up with Nurgle and just be cuddled by all the diseases and be cool with being a super gross, disgusting, rotting person who doesn't really feel bad about it. But out of all the methods of serving chaos or being a member of the chaos faction, the word bearers is among, not at the bottom, but among the bottom for me, just because you are offering yourself up knowingly as a tool for chaos against your own self-interest and against the self-interest of any given ideal you might have, because chaos is anathema to most ideals and simply won't settle on one, even if you decide to serve only one of the gods. And from what I understand, and this is the thing, you know, you can't make this, you can debate this with other chapters, but you can't debate it with other legions, but you can't debate it with the Word Bearers Legion, because the Word Bearers are very stubborn in their attempt to adhere to the Chaos Powers Undivided. And the fact of the matter is that Chaos Powers individually can be contradictory. The Chaos Powers among each other are as anathema to each other as the Emperor is to all of them, if not more. And that's a fucking problem. That's a huge issue. That's like one of the biggest issues with the whole idea of that.
Then I wonder, how does Abaddon the Despoiler do it? Because he's also an undivided, chaos demon. I don't know if he's a prince, but yeah, he is supported by all the chaos gods. And also, who was it? Perturabo. Yes, he's also an undivided chaos prince. He's a prince, right? Yes. So I'm wondering, how do they do it then? Considering that, AFanWithTooMuchTime also stating out that there are major contradictions between all the gods, and the kind of blessings that they bestow upon their champions, and what is it that they want their champions to do? How is it that Abaddon is able to keep up with the requests from all of the gods, all the chaos gods, as well as Perturabo? How are they able to do it?
You can't serve chaos undivided. You can only be torn apart by it. And I think that the only person who has figured out how to quote-unquote serve chaos undivided properly is probably... Please don't flame me for saying this, but it's probably Perturabo. Because if Perturabo hates chaos, and he despises the chaos gods, and he despises being used as a tool, and he's just made of loathing. But Perturabo is, to my understanding, a daemon prince of chaos undivided, and we're not even sure quite how that came to be. Like, we know that he sacrificed an enormous amount of gene seed from the Imperial Fists to accomplish this, but the conditions, the rules, the circumstances under which he became a daemon prince are still very, ill understood, and what he's been doing since then is also still very ill understood. So he seems to be the only one with even a chance of having done that and made it make sense. Other than that, I think the word bearers are pawns, but not in a flattering sense, and they know it and they choose it, and I don't understand why. And that may be because it is chaos. It's literal insanity, and there you go. And that's why I'm an Imperial faction player, because I don't get that. But there you go. So for me, Tisca all the way. I love them sorcerers. And that's, wow, I went off on a tangent on that one. Okay, I'll answer one more of these Q&As, and then that'll be it for me, guys. So, let's see here. Pablo Alejandro Guterre. You know who you are, Lou. All right, Q&A. How would you keep the Imperium of Man relevant in the long run when the Republic will adapt to their tech eventually and will still have the advantage of playing in home? You will see. Stick around, and that will be a part of the fun. Because trust me, the turnaround won't happen as fast as you might think, but when it does happen, there will be many ways by which the Imperium reacts. And yeah, you know what? I'm going to go ahead and put it down there. Until next time, I'll see you later.
Okay, guys, that's it with Star Wars vs. Warhammer 40K Episode 19, Silent Night, made by AFanWithTooMuchTime. Yes, we've been going through the question and answer session, and all the questions that were asked were also very important and very interesting, especially in terms of, you know, how the Jedi are going to be, you know, reacting to many of these new developments with the invasion, or should I say the incursion of the Warhammer 40K side, the Imperium of Man, and also, you know, how is it that the chaos demons, or should I say the chaos gods, how are they going to become a, should I say, like an important player in the Star Wars galaxy? Like, how will the Jedi be able to combat such threats when they do appear? Not sure when, but, you know, whenever they do appear, it's going to be something that the Jedi will have to contend with, not just with the Imperium of Man, but, you know, potentially new enemies. They were also asking about, you know, other factions like the Orcs, the Dark Eldar, and all these other factions. And, you know, AFanWithTooMuchTime has been stating that, you know, there will be some factions coming in, not sure when, not sure how, but they will be here. Forget about Primarchs, forget about those guys, they're not coming in. And yeah, there were also some people not really satisfied with what's being done here in Star Wars vs. Warhammer. And, you know, I've always stated this, that, you know, guys, if you're not impressed with, you know, the work that AFanWithTooMuchTime is doing here, probably you should start your own. You know, start your own stories and let us see what you can do, and whether everybody else is also going to agree with your stories that you make, you know. And yeah, it was good to hear more questions coming from the different fans. At least this time there weren't any questions about, well, there was a question about, you know, a future relationship between Ahsoka Tano and C-82, whether it will be a romance or a bromance. And yeah, I just don't see it happening, guys. I don't see any romance, I don't see any bromance. You know, it's just, you saved my life, I saved your life. We're done, we're even. Goodbye. If we see each other again, we'll kill each other. Something like that. But yeah, guys, that's it for today with AFanWithTooMuchTime. Remember, if you want to check out the original video as well as AFanWithTooMuchTime's YouTube channel, the links are in the description below. If you like my reaction, please give me a like, comment, and subscribe to my channel. Click on the notification bell if you want to be up to date with my latest videos, and I will see you guys next week. Okay, bye bye.